Yes, good evening. My name is Dr. Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. I'm also the president of United in Peace, Inc., and I got a very interesting guest, my friend, my mentor, and he was also instrumental in helping me to get a pardon from the governor. And this show and the issues was put together by none other than the producer of this show. And she's the chairman of United in Peace, Inc., and that's my wife, Terry Marsh Bradley. This show is presented by United in Peace, Inc. You heard me talk on the show about Mark Maxon, the gentleman that was wrongfully convicted. And they did a DNA and they was able to find the individual that really murdered and abused the little 6-year-old child. And when he got free, he didn't know how to get his ID. It was all kind of stuff, couldn't get the ID. And I brought him straight to the secretary's office. And Secretary Jesse White helped that man to get his ID. And great servant to the people. But before we bring on that video, I want you, I know him. Y'all know him too. But Secretary, let them all know what you do and how you done it so well.
Well, again, it's a pleasure for me to be here with you today. I espouse a philosophy of life, and that is, when you come through this world, you become successful, you give back, and you must do something good for someone every day. That's how I run my life. I've had the great pleasure of living in a great state of Illinois. I started out in Alton, Illinois at age 7 and moved to Chicago, to the north side, in a predominantly Italian neighborhood where you had to be able to capisci italiano, eat the linguine with the calabrese sauce, bablucci, italiano. Learned to speak the Italian language, and then later on it became Cabrini Green. I attended Wallace High School, which is now Lincoln Park. I played baseball, basketball, and I played drums in the band and orchestra. And then later on, after having graduated, I went off to Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama, where I played baseball, basketball, and I taught gymnastics. And I lived in the same dormitory with former Mayor Eugene Sawyer. And Dr. Martin Luther King was my minister. Mm-hmm. I was there during the bus boycott. Rosa Parks was a lady who refused to move to the back of the bus. And of course, after every basketball game, Dr. King would ask to meet with me, and he'd give me $20. That was legal then. I don't think it's legal now, but the bottom line is this. I became a pledgee for the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. And the 15 scrollers, which were pledgees for the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, were required to attend this church in the northern part of Montgomery. And we would walk 1.5 miles to this church on this first day. And there were about 15 people in my group, but there were about another 15 people in the church. And Dr. King introduced himself to us. Ralph Abernathy, the former civil rights leader, was the big brother of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. So he required us to attend this church. Mm. And so we were so inspired by this gentleman's spoken words that when we went back to the campus, instead of walking, we were running because we wanted to share with our classmates the fact that we had met this wonderful gentleman from Atlanta, Georgia, who was Dr. Martin Luther King, and he had some wonderful words to share with us. Mm. And then the next Sunday, we went to this church. Instead of there being about 30 of us, there were about 150 of us. And then later on, the next Sunday, people were standing outside the church to hear this man's spoken words. Later on, he received a promotion to the Dex Avenue Baptist Church in downtown Montgomery. And of course, after every basketball game, he would, I was an all-city baseball and basketball player here in Chicago, and I was highest scorer on the basketball team, but yet the smallest one on the team. And he would give me $20 after every game. I was a public aid recipient at the time, so $20 was big money at that time.
Real $20.
So later on, I graduated from Alabama State, came back to Chicago, and went out to Wrigley Field, tried out for the Chicago Cubs. And as it turned out, they gave me a contract. And 4 days before going to spring training with the Cubs, I was drafted into the Army. So instead of going to spring training, I ended up going to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And while I was there, I decided I wanted to learn how to jump out of airplanes. So they transferred me to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where I did 35 jumps, but I played baseball, basketball, and jumped out of airplanes. And after I completed my tour of duty, came back to Chicago, then went out to spring training with the Cubs, and played 7 years professional baseball in the Cub organization. And when I came back to Chicago, a fellow by the name of George Dunn, who's the former president of Cook County Board, asked me to consider running for state representative. And I asked him, I told him that I didn't think I would do very well being an elected official because I enjoyed supporting the endorsed candidates of the party. So I would go up to Schiss Mountain in Macedonia, Michigan every weekend, and I'd go down this one hill, and I was unsuccessful over a 15-year period of time of being able to negotiate the hill. And on this particular day, I went down, and 15 times I was successful. So when I came back to Chicago, I asked President Dunn, what is the makeup of the district? He said, well, Lincoln Park, DePaul, River North, Streeterville, the Gold Coast area, the Magnificent Mile, and Cabrini Green. And I said, that's like going from the Gold Coast to the Soul Coast. And I said that I didn't think I'd do very well with that kind of a situation. So he said, well, we'll support you. And as it turned out, I was successful in serving for 16 years as a state lawmaker for the state of Illinois, coming out of a district that covered Lincoln Park, DePaul, River North, Streeterville, the Gold Coast area, the Magnificent Mile, the DePaul area, and of course, Cabrini Green. And then I became the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, and then later on, I ran for the office, I served the Cook County Recorder of Deeds for 6 years, and then 24 years as Secretary of State, the longest serving in the history of the state, and the longest serving in the history of this country. And I want to thank you for allowing me an opportunity to not only take on the job, but to take on the responsibility that goes with it.
You know, Secretary, the last election, you were the top vote getter. You got more votes than the governor. Then I'll tell everybody that you got 3 million votes.
It was something like that, and I received more votes than anyone in the history of this state of Iowa.
Right. You know.
So I want to thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And thank your listening audience for allowing me to not only take on the job, but to take on the responsibility that goes with it.
But you know, that's because one of your other guys, because you know, Billy Dyson, you know, the great Billy Dyson, you know, that's my friend. That's my friend. And when you had us go all across Illinois for you, and people saw me and him, they said we were your wings. You know what I mean? And I want my viewing audience to understand this. He has transformed a lot of individuals' lives who have made the wrong mistake or the wrong choice and end up behind the walls of the penitentiaries and have come out and lived great lives because he was willing to give us a second chance before Danny Davis had a second chance bill that became law. And what I want to show, Secretary, I got a tape that I put together because we were talking about Mark Maxon.
Okay.
It's about 12 minutes long. We can see that, and then we're going to get back in because I want you to share with my viewing audience the programs that you got coming up coming through this year.
Sure.
And they need to know something else that you can remind them about. You and Sawyer and Martin Luther King, because we coming into Martin Luther King's birthday.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Okay. Sister Marty. There you go.
Begin, everybody, tonight with a man wrongly convicted of murder walking out of prison today.
New evidence has cleared Mark Maxon of a murder that occurred more than 20 years ago. He was serving a life sentence at Stateville Prison near Joliet. Eyewitness News reporter Evelyn Holmes was there when Maxon walked out. Evelyn?
Well, Mark Maxon has been free for just about over an hour now. After years of professing his innocence, it is new DNA evidence that finally freed him. After spending nearly half of his life in prison for a crime he says he didn't commit, Mark Maxon is finally a free man.
That's the best feeling that I could have, because my mother was there, the only, my mother's my stability.
The elated 55-year-old smiled as he walked out of the Stateville Correctional Center near Joliet this afternoon, only hours after a Cook County judge threw out his conviction for the murder of a 6-year-old boy on Chicago's South Side.
I wasn't going to give up on him.
No.
And I did what I could.
Maxon was sentenced to life in prison for the 1992 slaying of first grader Lindsay Murdoch. Investigators focused in on Maxon after he told a TV reporter that he'd bought chips for the child and told him to go home. The boy was found dead the next day in an abandoned garage near 107th and State. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Cook County State's Attorney, Anita Alvarez, writes that after an exhaustive reinvestigation, the conviction of Mr. Maxon could not stand. A criminal investigation into the 1992 murder of 6-year-old Lindsay Murdoch remains ongoing.
This case stunk right from the get-go. The judge said the same thing.
No physical evidence ever linked Maxon to the crime. Maxon has always maintained his innocence despite his confession, which attorneys say was coerced by detectives working for the infamous Chicago Police Commander John Burge.
He succumbed to the psychological torture.
Mark Maxon is the 15th person to have his conviction vacated since State's Attorney's Conviction Integrity Unit was formed in 2012.
As I tell brothers to stay focused on, stay strong, foundate yourself on the facts of your case.
Now, Mark Maxon went to a steak dinner with his mother. He says then he'll go home and take a little time to figure out what he's going to do with his new future. Reporting live from Statesville Correctional Center here near Joliet. Evelyn Holmes, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Our next speaker is Dr. Wallace Bradley.
Yes, good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
Since 2016, I've been speaking about the wrongful conviction of Mark Maxon. But I've been fighting for him to be free since 2013. And I'm speaking as an ex-felon that received a pardon, that did my bid in Stateville, and by God's mercy and grace, I was allowed to go back behind the wall of Stateville to help bring this man out. I'm glad to see that it's on the finance agenda, that he's going to receive a settlement for $8,750,000. But I'm going to share this with you. Because I fight him, and I do it all the time. And the one thing about it is freedom from being wrongfully convicted for a case outweigh the value of the settlement. You know what I'm talking about. He's been locked up 23 hours, 23 days, 23 years. His freedom. Sometimes an individual got to accept the blessing that God gave him when he gave him 2 blessings. Had I been locked up and had I been freed, I would have been happy to have a SSI check. But because October 22nd, this body or the corporate council made a decision to stop paying them private attorneys. From 2016, they have paid them private attorneys $2,700,000 for a case they knew that they couldn't win. Just one case and a bunch of them coming. I just want to say, I hope this body agreed to this settlement. There's all the settlements that's on here. But I want to thank you, if you do, for Mark Maxon, because I realize that the struggles that God had gave me to fight ain't been in vain, because this ain't the first one that I brought to get this done. So I'll just say thank you. I hope y'all agree with this to be brought before the full council, and stop paying them lawyers that cannot win a case because of torture and wrongful conviction. Again, thank you.
Mark Maxon versus John Duffy et al. The Department of Law recommends settling this reverse conviction lawsuit for $8.75 million. Plaintiff Mark Maxon was convicted in 1994 of sexual assault and murder. His conviction was vacated in 2016 after DNA testing conducted on a sample from the victim's clothes revealed that that sample did not match Maxon, and when compared to law enforcement database, it was discovered that the DNA matched another man named Osborne Wade, who had been previously convicted of another murder. Following his conviction being vacated, Maxon was awarded a certificate of innocence. He brought this suit against former detectives John Duffy, Angelo Pesavento, and William Marley, alleging that they coerced Maxon's confession, fabricated evidence, withheld exculpatory evidence, and maliciously prosecuted him. In addition, Maxon brings a Monell claim against the city, which is stayed while the other claims proceed. At this point in the litigation, discovery has ended, and the next stage would be summary judgment if the settlement is not approved by this body. The underlying crime here is a horrific murder and a sexual assault of a 6-year-old named Lindsay Murdoch. Lindsay went missing on the evening of August 29, 1992. His body was found covered in debris in an abandoned garage at 10730 South State Street. Media covered the incident, and Maxon, who lived in the neighborhood, was interviewed by reporters on television. Maxon told reporters that he had been with the young boy the night that the boy disappeared. Officers saw the interview, and Maxon was the last person known to have interacted with Lindsay. Detectives also discovered Maxon had been previously convicted of raping a woman in 1981. The officers reached out to Maxon, who agreed to come in for questioning. Maxon initially stated that he ran into Lindsay, who was alone on the street, at around 10:30 p.m., and he bought Lindsay chips at a liquor store and told Lindsay to go home. Then they parted ways. Maxon remained at the station overnight until he was taken for a polygraph. He claims that he was detained against his will. The officers contend that he remained voluntarily. The officers told Maxon that his polygraph indicated deception. Maxon was then re-interviewed and taken for blood samples. He remained at the station again overnight. The next day, he was again interviewed by detectives who reported that Maxon admitted then that he had bought crack before he ran into Lindsay. He said that he went to smoke crack in the abandoned garage, and Lindsay followed. Maxon then stated that he sexually assaulted the boy and choked him, then hid the body in the corner of the garage. Maxon repeated his confession to the assistant state's attorneys and gave a court-reported statement. Maxon, however, refused to sign the statement. At that time, blood and hairs were recovered, but none of it matched Maxon. No DNA testing was conducted because this was 1992. Maxon was tried and convicted by a jury in March 1994. He was spared the death penalty and sentenced to life without parole. Years later, Maxon petitioned for DNA testing, which was granted in 2016. As I stated, that testing revealed that the DNA did not match Maxon and that the DNA matched Osborne Wade. Maxon was released after the testing revealed that and charges dismissed. Wade was prosecuted and he pled guilty in 2021, but only to the charge of attempted murder. Maxon claims that his conviction was based solely on his confession, which was physically and psychologically coerced from him after he was unlawfully detained for 60 hours. He claims that the polygraph results were false and that the officers rushed to judgment in this high-profile crime. Maxon was in prison for a total of 24 years, and he will likely ask a jury for at least $48 million at trial. That does not include possible plaintiff's attorney's fees that the city must pay if Maxon wins, which will likely be around $2 to $3 million. The parties participated in a settlement conference and were able to reach an agreement for $8.75 million pending this body's approval. For all these reasons, the Department of Law recommends this settlement as fiscally prudent.
Thank you very much, Ms. Felker. Alderman Mitz.
A child, what was the age?
6 years old.
6 years old. And where were the child location? What was the location?
The body was found at 10073 South State Street at an abandoned garage.
And this was at 10 at night, 10 p.m.?
So he went missing on the evening of August 29th, 1992. Maxon ran into the boy at 10:30 p.m.
And there was a history of sexual assault from Maxon previous?
Maxon had been convicted of rape in 1981.
And what was with that case? Was he dismissed? Was the case dismissed and he was out?
The 1981 case?
Yes.
No, he
Was on
remains
probation?
convicted of that. To be clear, he's not in prison, but his conviction stands.
Okay.
Anything else, Alderman Mitz?
I'm just mind boggled. What was their parents, relative, family members? I just want to know, 6 years old, 10 o'clock at night.
All right,
That's all.
got you.
Thank you.
Alderman
Thank you.
Sposato?
Madam Chair, thank you, Jessica. Question about Osborne Wade. So he's serving life in prison now? Because did we pursue any charges against him, or is he like 20 years, or what's the deal with him?
He's been convicted. He pled guilty. I don't know his full sentence. He pled guilty to attempted murder.
But he is in prison. So then my question would be, one, why wouldn't we make sure he never gets out of prison by prosecuting him for that? And two, was Maxon and Wade, were they buddies or anything like that? Or is there any association between those two?
So Mr. Wade is in prison. He was convicted of this as an attempted murder. So he's been pursued as charges as soon as they discovered the DNA. As far as whether we have established a relationship between Maxon and Wade, other than being from the same area, no.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Felker, the DNA, the autopsy, did it reveal sexual assault on the young child? And if so, was the DNA testing done, the sexual assault?
Without getting into too many of the gory details, there was evidence of sexual assault. No semen was recovered. So there was no DNA testing to do.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion to recommend approval of item number 5E? So moved by Alderman Mitz, recommending do pass. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the do pass recommendation will report it out at the next city council meeting.
You know, Secretary, as we were sitting there watching that, I never forget, after I brought him up to your office and you helped him to get his license and everything else, and he became a registered voter that same day, and he went and voted. And he told me, he was crying, man. He said, man, Gator, I really feel free because I can vote. You know, I got about 5 minutes left, but I want you to share with my viewing audience the things that you got coming, what you're doing, and all of that. You know what I
Well,
mean?
you know, I was happy for this young man to become whole again.
Right.
And I played a small part in that. And I have a philosophy of life that says that when you get it, you give it back, and you must do something good for someone every day. Abraham Lincoln Marovitz taught me that. And so I used to work for the Park District, taught school to the day, worked for the Park District, and I was asked to put on a gym show. And that was the beginning of the Jesse White Tumblers team. I started at the Rockwell Garden housing project on the west side, and I've been involved with that program for exactly 65 years.
Wow.
And I've had over 20,000 young people to come through the program, and less than 20 have gotten themselves into trouble with the laws from after combat juvenile delinquency. When you give young people an opportunity to use idle time in a positive way, it's a win-win situation for all of us. They are required to be in school on time every day, and they have one aim in mind, and that's to get the best education possible. We teach them to love their fellow man and woman, never ever dislike anyone because of race, creed, or color. And of course, every marking period, they have to turn their grades in. If the grades fall below a C average, then they cannot participate with us until the grades have come up to par. We've taken these young people all over the world: Zagreb, Croatia, Belize, Israel, China, Tokyo, Japan, Hong Kong, Honolulu, Hawaii, Kauai. The list goes on and on. 3 movies we've been involved with, and there are 2 commercials that are being shown right now as we speak,
Right.
where the Tumblers are deeply involved with it. And every 2 weeks, these young people get paid. Whenever we do a show, the proceeds go to them,
Wow.
and they share and share alike in the process. And it gives them an opportunity to become productive citizens in our society. And of course, we go to the Bulls game or Boston Celtics,
Right.
or any of those big NBA teams.
Black Holes or whatever it is, right?
You'll see us.
Right, I know.
And of course, we take these young people on college tours. This last year, we started out at Nashville, Tennessee, where we visited and performed at Fisk, Mount Low School, Belmont, and Tennessee State. And then this year, we're going to go to Illinois State, University of Illinois, East Illinois, West Illinois, Southern Illinois. And then later on in the year, we're going to Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
To visit Spelman, Clark, Morehouse, and Atlanta U. So when you give young people a chance to see the world and put them on the right path to success, it's a win-win situation
Yes,
for
it
all of us. Someone helped me to be where I am today. I've never forgotten it. That's why every day I believe that we should be involved with doing something good for our young people and doing all we can to help them go tall and straight and become a productive citizen in our society.
You know, one of the other guys that you brought up through the ranks, and he's a friend of mine.
You talking about Walter Burnett?
Walter Burnett.
Well, Walter is
the vice mayor.
He's a superstar.
Yes, sir.
And he's a gentleman that not only has he taken on the job, but the responsibility goes with it. He's a ward committeeman of the 27th Ward. He's the alderman of the 27th Ward. And he's vice mayor of the city of Chicago.
And he's the chairman of the zoning committee.
That's exactly right.
You know, I'll tell everyone, don't listen to what they're not doing, or you feel you heard what they're not doing. Pay attention to what they're doing, including Mayor Brandon Johnson, including the fact that Pat Dowell is the chairman of the Finance Committee.
Wonderful.
The 28th Ward, Jason Irvin, is the chairman of the Budget Committee, was very instrumental in helping to get the budget passed. Walter Burnett is the chairman of the Zoning Committee, and Harris from the 8th Ward is the chairman of the Rules Committee. And one thing I can say is that we as a people are the fairest out of all the people, in my opinion, believe. And what I mean by that, we are inclusive, where everyone else, they get them offices, for some reason they don't include us as the people. That's why we constantly struggling. This city is gonna be great, because I believe God wanted to be great to help at a time, especially now, where you got a man that's about to be president and want to get rid of the Department of Education and so many things. I just know that by us being individuals that walk by faith in God, we know our DA dictates if we keep giving him praise. Our 400 plus years of DNA shows that we can get through this.
Right. I also want you to know that this Saturday, at my center at 412 West Chicago Avenue,
Okay.
we'll be distributing about 350 new jackets.
Okay.
Winter coats. Start at 10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock Saturday?
It's at 10 o'clock this Saturday to 12 o'clock.
Okay.
We just finished distributing on the 21st of December, somewhere in the vicinity of about 10,000 hams and turkeys.
Yeah, I saw them trucks, man. I saw them trucks.
And then we, in February, as we're in November, for Thanksgiving, we distributed about 6,000 hams and turkeys for needy families. But on July, I can't remember the exact date, we're going to distribute somewhere in the vicinity of 500 jackets and 500 truckloads of school supplies.
Right, that's what you do every year. Now, that's going to be in July, right?
That's going to be in July. In that packet, we're going to have somewhere in the vicinity of about, I'm glad that stopped.
All right.
We're going to have those 500 truckloads of school supplies along with a computer.
Right, okay.
And we don't care whether you're pink, blue, green, or yellow. We don't care where you're from. What you have to do is, number one, let us know that you have graduated from high school.
Right.
That you've been accepted into a 4-year institution.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, you become qualified to become a part of that program. So we've been doing that for about 12 years.
Right, I know, because, I'll be over there volunteering.
So I just want the people to know that they can call my office.
Hey, give them your phone number.
It's 312-266-7498. 266-7498. 312-266-7498. That is the home of the Jesse White Tumblers team and Fieldhouse.
Forgive that. It's just I've held him here longer than I had intended to. I just want to say to my viewing audience, thank you for listening to Secretary. Secretary, give him your number one more time.
It's 312-266-7498, and the office is located at 412 West Chicago Avenue. And outside of, it's called the Jesse White Community Center and Fieldhouse. Outside of the building is a beautiful statue that costs about $250,000.
Yeah, I saw that.
So if you see the statue, you know that you're at the right place. I also have a school in Hazel Crest, Illinois. It's called the Jesse White Learning Academy. And about 450 young people attend that school. We train at the Jesse White Community Center and Fieldhouse on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on Mondays and Wednesdays, we're at Thule Park and 9th and King Drive. And now we're going to have tryouts this week, so anyone who has some gymnastic skills who would like to become a part of the Jesse White Tumblers team training program, and eventually, if you're good enough, you will graduate in May and become a part of the Jesse White Tumblers team. As I said, we do about 1,500 shows a year. We travel all over the world, and our mission is to help young people to go tall and straight, stay away from gangs, drugs, and those negative aspects of life. When it happens, we in society benefit from that. So Gator, I want to thank you for giving, thank you for caring, and thank you for being the urban translator.
Yes, sir.
Because in my neighborhood, they say, you the man.
Love you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. To God be the glory. That's our story.
Thank you.